Today, we're going to dive into an incredible old story that's all about leadership. It's called The King's Ransom, a sacrifice for justice, and trust me, it packs a punch.
So, let's start with a really tough question, one that leaders have wrestled with forever. What do you do when justice and compassion pull you in completely opposite directions? Which one do you choose? This is the core of the whole story we're about to unpack.
All right, so our main character is this powerful king, and he's known for one thing above all else, his super strict sense of justice. But what he doesn't know is that this very principle is about to be pushed to its absolute limit.
So, picture this. It's a totally normal day in the king's court. Then, out of nowhere, this tiny, terrified dove flies right in. It lands in the king's lap, basically begging him for protection. Right there, the first piece of our puzzle's on the table, a cry for compassion.
But just moments later, in comes a hawk. And this hawk isn't asking for anything. It's demanding the dove, saying, hey, that's my lunch. This isn't about mercy. This is about what the hawk sees as its right. And just like that, the stage is set for a major showdown.
And this is where we get to the real heart of the problem, right? It's a totally impossible choice. You've got the little guy pleading for protection, and you've got the predator demanding its meal just to survive. Both arguments kind of make sense, but they're completely at odds.
So what does the king do? He sticks to his guns. He basically tells the hawk, look, my rule is simple. Anyone who asks me for protection gets it. So no, you can't have the dove. It's a firm decision, for sure, but it doesn't exactly solve the hawk's problem, does it?
And this slide really lays it all out, doesn't it? If he saves the dove, that's compassion. He's keeping his word. But if he does that, the hawk starves. And is that justice? I mean, what do you do when being kind to one person means being unfair to another? There's no easy answer.
Okay, so faced with this impossible choice, the king comes up with a pretty radical solution. And this is the part that takes the story to a whole other level. He's about to make a promise that's not just words, it's going to be paid in flesh and blood.
He looks at the hawk and makes this serious vow. He says, okay, I'll give you food that weighs the same as the dove. He thinks he's found the perfect loophole, a way to be both just and compassionate. But what he offers, well, that's what makes the story unforgettable.
So here's what happens. He brings out a scale. He puts the dove on one side, and then he takes a knife and cuts a piece of flesh from his own body and puts it on the other side. But here's the crazy part. It's not enough. The scales don't move. No matter how much of himself he puts on there, they stay unbalanced.
He just keeps going, cutting more and more, but the scales just will not balance. It gets to the point where the king is literally ready to put his entire body on the scale, to give up his whole life just to keep his word. This is it, the ultimate test.
And right at that moment, just as he's about to give up everything, the whole game changes. It turns out this whole thing, it wasn't just some random encounter. It was a setup, a test of his character.
Yeah, this was never really about a hawk and a dove. The whole thing was a test.
Suddenly, the dove and the hawk, they transform. They're actually gods or divine beings in disguise, and they tell him, we just came to test you, to see if your compassion and your sense of justice were real. And you know what? He passed with flying colors. He proved he would stick to his principles no matter what.
So what's the point of this whole crazy story? What are we supposed to take away from it? Well, that brings us to the big lesson here. Let's break down what this ancient tale can teach us about what it really means to be a great leader.
The main takeaway is pretty powerful. Being a true leader isn't just about making hard choices. It's about what guides you when you make them. And according to this story, it's a mix of three things: compassion, justice, and a willingness to sacrifice.
Let's look at those three pillars. First up is compassion, right? Protecting the vulnerable. Then there's unwavering justice, and that means keeping your promises, even to your enemies. And finally, self-sacrifice, being willing to pay the ultimate price for what you believe in. You put those three together, and that's the recipe for real leadership.
So this old story leaves us with a really big question for today. In our world, which is, super complex, what does a true sacrifice for justice even look like? It's definitely something to think about, isn't it?